welcome back to JamiesLocks. Got another one for you here on the gut reassemble. And we're going to take a look at this lock, show you any gotcha moments you might come in to when you're trying to gut this thing for your videos. And just kind of, help you out if you end up in a situation where you may have disassembled the lock. You got it all apart, but something happened and you need to know how to put it back together. So, Abus 7240. It's a nice little padlock. As far as I consider this like a school locker type lock. I wouldn't want to use it for anything hyper secure because it's got a real small body, small shackle. Probably make a really good lockout tagout type lock. I wonder if that's what it might actually be used for. It is a 6-pin. It has kind of an obfuscated depth for the cuts on the keys. They are V cuts as opposed to your standard, down, flat, up type cut. It's not a bad little lock. It is disassemblable, rekeyable if you've got an Abus key kit or pinning kit. And just like some of the other ones that I've done already, like the Americans, it uses a Phillips head and has a screw down the shackle hole for removing it. The difference is this one does not have a plate. The lock body itself is all one unit. If you go inside, there's not really any parts that can come out of it. There's a spring down in there. I don't know if you can see that. That'll pop out. But the mechanism is, it's a little bit different than what we saw in the American locks when we disassembled those. Again, I don't take these things apart unless I'm trying to fix it. And with, with most of these locks, the cost of fixing this, the cost of sourcing parts, is probably going to be more than just pitching the lock or saving this one for parts for another lock and just buying a new one. So we're going to set that body aside. It's a very lightweight aluminum body. And we're going to take a look at the core here. Now the core doesn't have anything fancy. You can see the screw hole in the back. And let's come in here so we can start doing our gut here. We focus, yeah. Okay. You can see the screw hole where it gets attached to the body. It's a very lightweight core. I'm guessing aluminum or some kind of lightweight steel. Most likely aluminum, since you can see where with my picks I accidentally scratched this as I was trying to pick it. And it scratches very, very easily. But, we're just going to take it apart anyway. As far as gotcha moments, like with the American on this thing, one thing to keep in mind, this pin stack is not this way. The pin stack's this way. Okay? Because it has to be offset to get around this screw hole. So let's go ahead and let's tear it down. Take our C-clip remover. Same exact followers for the Americans. Flip it over. Let's pop a key in. Now with this one, I'm gonna do it same exact way because it's got that notch right there, and we don't want the driver pins to fall down inside that notch. It's not Minecraft. Sorry, that was a bad joke. But we're going to turn it so that the key pins are off to the side. There's no holes or anything on the bottom side where the, or not on the bottom, but on the sides where driver pins could fall in. But we don't really know what's in the core until we take it apart. So I don't want to turn it too far. And I'm only turning it just enough where I can feel the driver pins have cleared the key pins. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to take our follower and just like before, hold it up against. And slide the lock body over the follower. Now I did it on the flat side here because I wasn't really sure what was going to happen with this. But looking at it again, it looks like this groove on the side does not have the width to get any of the driver pins hooked up. And there are no construction holes or other types of skeletonization, say that 5 times fast, that might hang you up on it. These pins seem to move around pretty freely. They don't seem to stick, which is good. And there are actually all 6 pins. There is a little itty bitty indent in the back here. And I surmise that is to keep the C-clip from spinning around, because when you put the C-clip in it, it's going to end up with that little notch right there. That notch is going to go down the hole, kind of like Minecraft. So, sorry. Let's start. Pin 1, and these are going to fall out easy. Standard pin. Pin 2, pin 3, man, I abused the heck out of this when I was picking it. Pin 4, pin 5, pin 6. Awesome. So we got them all out. Nothing inside the core. Nothing that will really hang anything up or cause any problems. This is not the Abus keyway one. This is kind of the I'm gonna be a pain in the butt and try and ruin half your pick keyway. Seriously, if you have to pick this version of the 7240 as opposed to the one that has the American one that if you turn on its side actually kind of spells out Abus, you can drive a truck down that other keyway. This one is a pain in the butt. I actually had to specially kind of bend and curve with a very tiny pick, and I ended up ruining my Peterson H1 pick on this lock because it's a very difficult lock to pick. But yeah, so we're going to set the core aside. Let's take a look at what we got inside this. Now, this one's a little bit easier to figure out what's going on, what end is what. But just like on the Americans, it's got that cutout there. Well, that cutout is for the face of the lock. So this is your pin 1 on this side, but it's easier on this one to tell because the back has the screw hole. That's going to be inside the lock, farthest away. So that's going to be your pin 6 on that end. But let's go ahead. Let's see what we got. Oops. Now, how many of you actually just saw what happened right there? I spent an hour looking for a driver once. Popped it out. Spring was under a lot of tension, and I got the spring out of it. Where'd the driver pin go? Well, the driver pin actually fell back down inside the chamber. It's like they tried to swap spaces. The driver pin ended up back down inside the Bible, but the spring came out and went someplace else, and that's where your eyes will follow if that happens to you. You may not notice that the driver pin fell back down inside. Okay, so that's the standard pin, and that seems to be common on Abus locks. They'll put a standard pin right up there in the front to serve as the gatekeeper, and that will be the one that prevents the lock from, being all floppy, because most of the rest of the pins that they use are all spools in these locks. So you end up with 5 spools and 1 standard. You pop the standard, and depending on the keying, as I was explaining with the Americans in my last two videos, you will get a pretty deep false set to start with. And now for the last. So, yeah, and I mean, they're all standard spools. They're not, you know, they're not serrated spools. That would be a good upgrade to make to these. You know, serrate the key pins. You want to make a challenge lock, go ahead, take these key pins, serrate them, take the spools, put some serrations in the bottom ends, get rid of that standard pin, and or fill it up with a bunch of serrations, or, you know, something to that effect, and you'll have yourself a pretty darn good lock at that point. As far as the lock body goes, you can see how the Bible holes, the chambers, are offset. So don't think the lock has to be orientated this way. The lock's actually orientated kind of that way. So, yeah. So, let's see. Last time it was a 2-year-old or your cat. I don't know. Maybe you'll sneeze or something, and they'll just shoot, and they'll all go flying. Okay. Well, let's get them all back into play. Separate out all the different pins, the drivers, the key pins, the springs. And let's start putting this thing back together. I've got a cluster of springs here. This is like slinky hell. Usually if you just kind of handle them gingerly, they'll come apart pretty easily. But they're not as bad as telephone cords, and I wonder how many people out there actually remember a telephone cord. I got pins all over the place. That was a little more than what I wanted to do. I apologize for the delay. Of course, my son went to bed an hour ago, and I've still got puppy dog pals on. And of course, my standard pin went the farthest. Alright, so, just like with our last locks that we were working on, let's go ahead and let's examine this a little bit. Now, I said it was obfuscated, but, you know, if you just kind of stop and think about it a little bit, it's not actually that bad. So we've got, let's see, it looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So those points are that. We've got, I don't know what the actual cuts are, but we've got pin 1 and pin 4 look like they're the same depth. 2 and 3 and 5 look like they're the same depth, and the shortest one, 6, looks like it is back here. Or excuse me, 1. I just did that whole thing backwards. Apologies. So 1 is our shortest pin, so let's start there. That's probably this one. Get back here. Get back here. Get over here. Yep, looks like we got that one right. Next, we're going to go down for 3 pins that pretty much look like they're all the same height. That would be pin 2, 4, and 5. And I happen to have 3 pins here that look like they're all about the same height. So let's go 2, 4, and 5, and just work your way down. And then the last 2 pins, I remember, look like they're about the same height as well. Nice, straight. They would stand. Smooth across the top. Looks like we got this one locked down in the barrel. Now, I'm going to pull this out. I'm going to let the pins drop. And let's analyze what should go where. Because just like with the other one, I'm not going to pin this back up to factory. I'm going to change the order of the pins. It's because I know that, you know, in these locks, pin 1 is the only one in there that isn't a spool. Well, what can I do to change that up so that I get maybe a little bit better effect out of it? First things first, let's drop a spool into chamber 1. And you can see it fits in there nicely. Nice and low. Plenty. Whoop. Yeah, something's going to happen when you're not paying attention. Fortunately, they all fell out in the right order. I hope. We'll find out. Tune in at 11. Jamie's. I don't even know if this is the right order anymore. I'm going to have to grab the key and check it real quick. I think I might have screwed it up. That's alright, because we know how to fix it, right? That's why we do these videos. Oh, look at that. Perfect. Alright. Oh, be careful you don't yank the key out. I've done that before on some of these locks. You get really nice tolerances on these things where, or I should say really bad tolerances, but you know, the pins move really nicely and floppily in there. You can actually yank the key out so fast that it launches your key pins right out of the top of the core. Okay, so we're going to set that right there. And this time I'm going to be careful. So, yeah, you can see where pin 1, that's a really good spot for a spool. It's going to give a nice false set on that. So, yeah, let's leave it there. Let's put the check pin. I don't want to make it too easy by like putting it back here where it becomes just like a single pop. But I mean, spools are going to be ineffective there anyway. So I literally had 2 pins that required very little effort to pick. You know what? I'm going to put the check pin in 6 just to switch it up. Literally mirror image of the lock. So now that I got that settled, that's the only one that's any different, so I don't need to make any real decisions about anything else. Let's go ahead and get to assembly. We're going to start with the core. Bear in mind keeping that notch where the screw hole is. And let's start putting this thing back together. On this one, because there's 6 pins, I am going to do 3 on this side and 3 on the other. All the springs are the same. They're all steels. Really nice. I like steel springs. I like strong springs in my locks. There we go. So there's my 3 springs. Now I need to grab, we're going to start with 4 because we're working backwards towards the back of the lock. We're going to put in 4. We're going to put in 5. And we're going to put in 5. Stand. And 6. Which is now our new check pin. There. Slide the follower all the way to the other side. And whoop, springs for 3, 2, and 1. Contact. And now we're going to go ahead. We're going to put in 3 first. 2. 1. Alright. Core's redone. Again, let's bear in mind that this thing's got an angle there, and make sure that that's at the right angle. To complement that, we know we don't have any real gotchas with this lock. See what I mean by going too fast? Almost had a mishap. So we're going to make sure that that's lined up. We're going to make sure that that's lined this way again. Because remember, if I put it this way, I'm going to drop all my driver pins into there. So let's go just like that. We're going to hold these two together like this. Yep. And then we're going to slide the core. I'll slide the body over the core. Turn it up to locked. Check. Make sure everything turns. We don't want to turn it too far, because one thing I didn't go over, this is another one of those locks where you can drop the key pins out the bottom. So you can bugger yourself if you're not careful. And there we go. Yeah, I like this lock. It's a neat little lock. We got it set up right. We know it works. Let's put the C-clip back on. Remember that little detent I was talking about? Make sure the tooth on the C-clip goes back into that, like so. Now, there's no anti-bypass plate on this one. So you just pop the lock core in. That's all you can really do. It goes in smooth, it goes in easy, there's no real problems with that. Your screw should probably still be in here. If not, go ahead and pop it in. Screw it down. And what do we do, folks, before we... Oh, and incidentally, because this one isn't a pressure pull on a plate from this side, you can crank this down as tight as you want. It won't matter. It won't interfere with the lock. What do we always do before we close the shackle, though? We always test to make sure that the key turns. That's it, folks. Thank you for watching. You know, you've seen some of my other videos. I'm going to be doing these based on all of the locks from my collection that I have already done a pick and gut on. So if you want to look through my pick and gut videos and say, hey, you know, I kind of want to see this lock specifically. You know, how do you know, work with that lock? Go ahead, take a look, and let me know in the comments, and I will, I'll try and do that one next. Thanks again for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, please. I need YouTube dollars so I can buy more locks to pick. Alright, folks, have a good night. Enjoy yourselves.